Hello, everybody. Just making sure everything works. Can you hear me okay? We had some power outages the past couple of weeks. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. So, assuming that is the case, one thing you got to keep in mind, I'm a little bit out of my element right now. And that's because on Thursday, I got hit with the COVID sledgehammer. So, past couple of days have been pretty rough. I managed to go 2.5 years without getting it, and this past week I picked it up somewhere, and it hit me hard for about 24 hours, and I'm a lot better than I was just 24 hours ago, but I'm still not 100%. So I'm going to do my best. I want to keep my commitment to you all, and since sitting here in this chair and looking into a camera isn't all that difficult, I wanted to go ahead and have the stream anyway, because I do have some announcements to make, and I definitely want to reach out to you all and fulfill my promises and commitments to you all. So I may not be my sprightly self during this live stream, but this too shall pass, and I'll have the weekend to kind of recuperate and try to get somewhat back to normal. So it's been a very unpleasant past 24, 48 hours for me, but we are all here. So if you see beads of sweat or hear a little cough, that's because I'm dealing with COVID right now. Alrighty, who do we got in the live stream? There you are. Yeah, so let me know where you're watching from. I always like knowing where everyone is coming from and different parts of the world you are located, and it's just great to see everybody. So if I have to deal with COVID, I'd rather do it with you all. So, I guess that's the good thing. Alrighty. Cheers from Denver. It's good to see you. Piper Trip, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. What else we got here? Got a few more people. Oh, thanks for the clap. I appreciate that. Gaurav from India, thank you for coming by. Excellent. I'm glad you were here. So I'm going to who we got here? So Saudi Arabia, awesome. Bonn, Germany. So it's so weird that coincidence, Manoj, that you are watching from Bonn, because this fall I might be going to Bonn, Germany. Still waiting to see if that is going to be able to work out. But I have one of my best friends from IU, from Indiana University. He is there with his girlfriend, working for 6 months, and I might have a place to visit and stay. So I might be going to Bonn, Germany this fall. So stick around for that if you are in Germany. So Miami, excellent. And then from Nigeria, look very well. I might look very well, even though I'm starting to sweat already. But you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm not, my sinuses are all inflamed and stuff. But hey, looks are half the battle, right? Fake it till you make it. So, some announcements to talk about. Let's talk about the channel just real quickly and the stream. So, if you're new to the stream, what I try to do is keep the stream within like 30 minutes or so. Probably even more so today because I'm not feeling all that great. But will do my best to answer whatever questions you have, whatever comments you might put in the chat. And if I can't answer them during the stream, then you can always drop me a message on LinkedIn is the best place, probably my website or something like that. And I can maybe get back to you at a later time if I can't answer the question in the live stream. So the questions don't necessarily have to be about statistics or anything. I'm more than happy to chime in on whatever else within reason, within limits. Yeah, so we'll try to keep the stream moving today. Okay. All right. So I do have some announcements to make. This is actually a stream where I'm actually showing you some new stuff. The first thing I want to point out, Graf, thank you very much. Thank you for your speedy recovery. I appreciate that. Yeah, before I get into some of the other stuff I want to show you. So obviously I got COVID on Thursday night, was really hit me. It was horrendous. Oh, it's one of the worst nights of my life. Thursday was horrendous. But I had like a plan in place, expecting to get it at some point. So I kind of had like a system ready to roll if and when I was going to get it. And so I kind of put that system in place as soon as I thought that I was coming down with it. And that's why I'm even able to sit here now, because 24, 36 hours ago, not pretty, not pretty at all. So I put that sort of system in place I had developed, and that's allowed me to be here with you today. And, you know, when we know things like that, I think are potentially in the offing, to try to get something in place to help can be of a big assistance. Actually, I actually exercised some very, very light exercise this morning because I hadn't done anything in like 3 days. So put a system in place for certain things you think might happen, and it can lessen the, you know, the struggles of going through that. So, all right. Mesmerized to see this beautiful personality. It's usually better. Thank you, but it's usually better. So in the next 2 weeks from now, hopefully it'll be back to normal. But thank you very much. And watching from Pakistan, excellent. Abdul, thank you for stopping by. So a few announcements. Go ahead and put over question. You can go ahead and put your questions and comments in the chat, and I'll put them on screen and get back to them after I do a few announcements. So the first announcement I would like to share with you. Get my screen together here. I've been talking about this for like the past several months, but I am happy to share with you all that I was able to work with an online institution to bring them on as a sponsor and help you for a series of live streams and videos. So last week we went ahead and put that deal in writing and signed everything, and that is now in place. So this stream is not part of that, but let me get this off the screen. This stream is not part of that sort of arrangement, but I will kind of share with you what it is. So over the next several months, I hope on this stream to have very special guests to talk to you, and you can ask them questions about their field and their expertise and stuff like that, and you can have them as a resource. And then also kind of offer you the things that this organization has. So I'm proud and very happy to announce, because they are fantastic, that over the next several months I will have some sponsorship opportunities with Statisticscom. It is the Institute for Statistics Education. I mean, if you have the domain name statistics.com, that should tell you something, right? So they're going to come on and do some things with our channel here, and hopefully be some benefit to you all. And I will go into more about them and what they do and what they offer, and the individuals that are involved with that. But I will tell you this, that it's an online institution. It's not like a Udemy or something like that. It's like an online institution. And they go out and gather some of the best people in their fields to offer like personalized classes. Like it's personalized. You talk to the instructors. And one of the instructors is actually an author I work with at Cengage by complete coincidence. So Cliff Ragsdale writes this spreadsheet modeling book, and he actually teaches at statistics.com. So they have some great people there. But I will go more into that over the next few months, and of course I'll let you know what sort of guests we have from there on to talk about the books they write and their thoughts on the current situation and the fields that you all study in and want to learn from. So yeah, and again, I don't. Over the course of the life of this channel, over 10 years, I've only said yes to one other sponsor, and that's having received probably 100 of them. So literally 100. So I only bring sponsorships onto the channel if I think they can benefit you as a student, or someone who's teaching out in the field or whatever else it might be, or just because you're curious about these topics, I only say yes very, 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 very rarely. So we've been working on this sponsorship arrangement for months because we wanted to make sure it was what they needed, what my viewers needed, and we're not exploiting you or your time, and they are benefiting, from their mission to provide high quality education in statistics, machine learning, data science, data visualization, Python, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so I'm going to talk more about that as we go. All right. Okay, some other announcements before I get to some of the questions or comments. Congrats on the collab. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm very, very I'm very much hoping that it will provide you all some benefit. And quite honestly, it's just me on this live stream the vast majority of the time. So bringing other people on to the live stream will give you another person to ask questions. So, okay. So the next thing I want to show you is some new stuff I'm working on. So almost entirely on the channel up to this point has been Statistics 101. And over the course of this live stream over the past year, I've solicited your feedback for other topics you might want me to cover on the channel. And I'm happy to announce that I have decided on what that is going to be. And actually, I've already started on the content. And I'm going to get some videos sort of built up to release, once the fall semester starts, because that's when things start picking up again. And I want to integrate the Statisticscom collab into those videos. But I've already started on them. I got three done already. And the next topic I'm going to go into is going to be time series. So this is going to be the title slide for this new series of playlists on time series. I guess I could probably remove that. And like I said, I already have 3 videos done, and the PowerPoint's done, for the videos. And I'm starting on the 4th already. So I'm hoping to have these videos beginning to released in August, and I'll have them queued up and ready to roll. So this is what it'll look like. It might change slightly, but this is what the new Time Series 101 videos and playlists will look like. And I'll have a little end screen that will show. Yeah, so that's it. You all requested some content on time series, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to work on over the next foreseeable future. So look out for those. You can't miss them. They're bright green. I would imagine those will start releasing sometime probably in August and keep going into the indefinite future. That does not mean, however, I may not release statistics videos in between those. So I'm not giving up one thing necessarily for another, but I do like to stick with a playlist for a while because my train of thought keeps going on that topic, and it's easy to stay in that groove. So you might see an occasional statistics video intermixed in there, but I'd imagine the majority of them will be time series over the next few months. So. All right, go back to the comments here. All right. So Piper Trip asks if I have a bachelor's in geology from nearly 30 years ago, and I wanted to get a master's in statistics. Would I need to go back and get a BS in stats first? So that's going to depend on the program you are admitted to, Piper Trip. So some programs might require some sort of supplemental courses for you to take along with the master's. That might require some prerequisites for you to go into that master's program. One of the challenges with this is I'm sure, as you know, the field of statistics and data science, well, data science really didn't exist, 30 years ago in any shape or form like we conceptualize it now. Statistics has been around for 100 years or more. So it just depends on what sort of flavor of statistics program you're sort of going into and what the prerequisite requirements are for the program that you're going into. So the best people to ask that question to would be the programs you're applying to ask them what the requirements are, or if you need to do any remedial classes. I mean remedial, not in like the sense it usually is set in, but remedial in terms of like getting up to speed, right? But that's really up to the program. I do think it can definitely benefit you, and or they might have an arrangement where you can do like some sort of online program or certificate or course to fill in for that. And actually, it's a good segue. The sponsor, the future sponsor I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream, actually does this sort of thing. So they have these programs and courses that can be a gap or even a substitute for college coursework, depending on the college you're in. So you might find a situation like that they might be willing to accept, a certificate or some other demonstrable artifact that that content. So, it just depends. It just depends on the program. So I would talk to, look at the programs you're thinking about applying to or have applied to, and get their input on that. So, all right. So, are you planning? Gaurav asks, are you planning to go deep in statistics and cover more complex and mathematical part? Kind of make separate video of applying statistical methods in R or Python. So that's two questions. So am I planning to go deep in statistics to cover more complex mathematical part? The answer to that is probably no. So my niche, my sort of space is really geared towards, students who are coming into these fields or having to come back to them. That's Piper Tripp's a perfect example. So Piper Tripp got his bachelor's in geology from nearly 30 years ago, is thinking about coming back into these fields after a long time out of education and needs to sort of get back up to speed. So my niche, my area of specialization, and what I'm really good at is those types of students. So students who are coming into these things at the beginning or coming back to them because they need to get up to speed. That's what I'm really good at. So that's what I stick to. Second question is make separate videos applying statistical methods in R or Python. I have done some of that throughout videos here and there, but whereas other people see R and Python as a distinct field and thing, I see them as tools. So if I need them, I bring them out. Otherwise, I don't bring them out. Plus, there's so much other content on R and Python with statistical methods and data science already out there. I'm not sure I would add that much to that conversation. So I'm not saying I won't, but it just depends. I tend to bring those tools out when needed and leave them on the shelf when I don't need them. And that's partly to the first point, is that I tend to specialize and I'm really good at explaining things to students who are just sort of starting out and need that fundamental foundational concepts and stuff like that, which at that point tend to be not as likely to be, neck deep in R or Python. So that's kind of the way I view those sorts, the way I've used those sorts of things. It's also challenging sometimes with R and Python and things like that, as they change so often that you could put together a tutorial and then something can change and then all the content you made is largely useless. So that's another thing that makes it challenging. So, all right. In here. So, a much awaited topic to learn from you. Thank you for bringing the time series. You're very welcome. So, I have a specific interest in time series analysis. So I got into technical analysis several years ago. I thought it was interesting. The concept of time itself is something I find very interesting. And it's sort of related to, in certain aspects, when you get into econometrics and building time series models, it overlaps with regression, of course. So there's some overlap. There's some overlap with regression. So, okay, I need to take a drink of water because my throat is starting to go on me. COVID sucks. All right. If possible, please make videos on business analysis career-oriented course. Business analyst career-oriented course. So MBA qualified guy like Tableau, SQL. So maybe. So SQL, I haven't studied SQL in a long time. It's probably not going to be sort of my cup of tea. I know it's very popular again sort of right now, but it's not really something I've done in a long, long time. Tableau, again, that's one of those things I put in the R or Python bucket that, one, to teach Tableau, you have to use Tableau Public, which is very lacking, in my opinion. It's better than nothing, but it's very lacking. And of course, buying Tableau costs $1 trillion. So making tutorials on that is a bit more challenging. Sticking with Excel and Power BI is probably much more closer to the route I would go. So that's probably the route I would go. If I went into more business analytics and analysts, I'd probably go the Power BI route and not the Tableau route, which I'm actually more likely to do because I would like to learn more about Power BI myself, and I might just use that as an opportunity to bring some of that to you. All right. Ooh, lots of questions in here. Part 2 question, I'll learn more about various modeling techniques like uplift modeling, affinity models, lookalike models. I know for you, is there some resource to get at least names? I don't know. I will tell you if I tell you when I don't know, and that's a question at this point. I really do not know. I have a lot of books over here on, various modeling techniques, just from regression, more advanced regression, multivariate regression, and then of course some machine learning books over there. And those are things that I have not come across. So unfortunately, I cannot chime into that. However, what I'm going to do is maybe jot some of those down and look them up. Yeah, this is one of those things I can't always... affinity modeling actually sounds familiar, but... Okay, I wrote those down on my little handy pad here. All right. Okay. I'm trying to think of ones I can answer fairly quickly here, because my voice and everything is starting to go on me. Let's see here. Follow this up. So I can later study them, especially marketing related. Excuse me. So I'm glad you pointed to the fields these are used in, because I can actually look more into those. So I have an interest in some of this stuff. So I can just do some research. So as I've said on this channel, ad nauseum, part of the challenge is that, doing YouTube and the live streams and stuff is like the third tier in what I do for a living. So I have my day job. I have some other voiceover work and training courses I work on, and then I have YouTube. So I can only devote so much time to the YouTube stuff, especially without a sponsor. Part of the time series playlist coming out is because I now have a sponsor to help with it. So I do the best I can for you all. I really do my best. So, okay, I'm trying to think here. All right. So this is related to previous question, introductory stuff on how we make models. So model building is a part of a lot of things. So obviously, as I'm doing the research and the background work in the time series stuff, time series modeling is ginormous. There's so much that goes into time series modeling. So of course, in time series, a model is different than a prediction. Those are two separate things. But modeling goes into everything from, what type of model do you want to implement based on the question you're asking, which is probably the most important thing. What sort of data do you have to work with? How do you do, variable selection or, or feature selection, feature engineering, what are all those sorts of things? It's embedded in a lot of the education surrounding these sorts of things, So there are lots of books over on my shelf that kind of have this stuff embedded and built in, So when we think of the things that go into how we build models and start there. And the most important thing is whatever question we're trying to answer. That's the fundamental thing. What is the question we are trying to answer by building a model? What are we trying to represent in the model? What sort of correlations or what sort of tie-ins do we see between variables when we build a model? What other factors go into building this model? And start there. 75 or more % of all of this starts before we ever sometimes even get data. It's all just formulating how it all works. So, all right. I don't want to move on to some other people's questions and comments. So Piper asked, So in regards to going back for a master's in statistics, I said just exploring and trying to get a feel for what I might need to do in preparation. Great way to approach it. And, if you start looking at certain programs, obviously they're going to have certain requirements that you'd probably have to meet. And, you can email them or call them. And a lot of programs have special tracks for students who are doing exactly what you're doing. So because a lot of these fields that as we conceptualize them now didn't exist, only a few years ago. So no one could have known, right? So for students who are coming back into a master's degree program after being out of their bachelor's for a while in a field that's relatively new and developing quickly, they often will have a special track where you can enter the program, at least conditionally, usually on the basis that you have to take some courses up front and pass them before you can be admitted into the actual master's program. So sometimes the master's program would be set up as such that you have to take some introductory, like, some statistics courses or some other quantitative courses first, and then you can get into the master's program or some other way of demonstrating the prerequisite knowledge. So, all right. You appreciate it. Absolutely. So John says, sometimes it helps to see the application of what you are teaching with the tools we use. Absolutely. The question there is, who is we? So, and what are the tools? So for some people, those tools are R and Python. For some of those people's tools are Tableau. For some people, the tools are Power BI. For some people, the tool is just Excel. For some people, the tool is their calculator. So it's really hard to pin down what the tool is and who we is. So I do my best to, make sure it can be as applicable to as many people as possible. So it just depends. It just depends. The concepts are one thing and the tools are another, and sometimes they're intertwined, but sometimes they're not. So if everyone used the same tools, it would be easier. But the problem is that's not the way it works. So I try. All right. So I think this has started a conversation. I'm going to look through, let's see, could you recommend me the best book for statistics for all ML? I'm going to look through this. This one. Can't see it. Glare. There we go. So this is the book that was mentioned. Why can't I get that to not glare? That's so annoying. What if I take the cover off? Is that better? Yeah, so this is the book that was mentioned. So Introduction to Statistical Learning with Applications in R. This is the book that was mentioned in the chat. So if you're looking to get, to learn more about statistics, there's actually a fair bit of math in that book. So if you like some of the mathematical things in it, you might want to get that. And of course, that has some R code in there. So that is the book that I think Piper. Yeah, so that's it. So we call it ISL book. It's the ISL with applications in R. I do believe it's free. You can pick that up. So yeah. So math behind Algo. So this book has some of the math sort of in there, right? It just depends on how deep into the woods you want to go. If you want to get into like all the crazy matrix operations that go into a lot of these algorithms, you're going to have to find a specialized text. And that's, as far as my channel and what I do, that's beyond what I do or really care about, to be quite honestly. I love math and everything, but there's a point where it's just beyond, what I'm interested in exploring. That's why we have the computers to do it for us. So, it depends on how mathy you want to get. So I think the ISL book will get you up to a certain point, and then you might have to get really specialized into what you're reading and consuming if you want to get into the mathematics behind a lot of these algorithms. So yeah, so ISL. Yeah, so there's another book, Elements of Statistical Learning, with the same authors. So you have ISL and ESL, and I think I only have the PDF of that one. Okay. Same authors, though. Absolutely. All right. So which book suggests for someone who's new to statistics and your all-time favorite statistics learning book? That's easy. So the disclaimer is that I now work on the team that makes this book. However, the reason I can answer this question honestly is because I was using this book in my tutoring years and years and years before I ever knew or ever worked at my current company. I'd gone through a lot of statistics books looking for one that was great to use in tutoring, and I settled on this one. So my favorite book is Statistics for Business and Economics. Okay. So this is getting ready to be the 15th edition. I've been using it to teach from the 10th or 11th edition, which is like almost 15 years ago. And I've only been working at Cengage for 8 years. So of all the books that I reviewed to use in my tutoring, this is the one I settled on because of its clarity, because of how well it's written from an explanatory point of view. So this has been and will always be my go-to book for learning statistics. I obviously work on it in my day job. It's also the market leader in its field by far, so that just shows you how good it is. And it's been around for a long time. So that's my favorite book. Even though I work on it now in my day job, I was using it many, many years ago because that's how good it is. So you can find, prior editions of this used, I'm sure. and the basic content is, is similar over time. So that's what I always recommend to people to find. So, all right. Okay. Thanks. You are welcome. All right. A few more minutes. I'm starting to feel it. So Kevia, hi. Good to see you. I'm an analytics professional who learned statistics on the job. I struggle sometimes to keep up with PhD colleagues or to push some solvings of problems to the next level. Would you be willing to field some questions on where to look to solve some of these problems? It's hard to know. Let's go back to your original question. The questions I can answer on the live stream, are ones that I have readily available in my head, and tend to be short questions. But I'm gonna go back to your original point here. So, an analytics professional who learns statistics on the job, I struggle sometimes to keep up with PhD colleagues or to push some solving of problems to the next level. So, first thing, I don't have a PhD in statistics either. I'm largely self-taught. Outside of my formal classes I had during my education on a lot of these things, and a lot of people nowadays are self-taught. So, some assumptions embedded in your question or your comment is what do your PhD colleagues do or know that you feel like you need to know to take these sorts of things to the next level? What are they? Try to identify what they are. Then, to what extent do you feel you need to sort of close that gap? Once you think about what those things are. Then once you decide on what those things are that you want to close the gap on, then it's going out and finding the resources to help close that gap. That's like on the education side. The second thing here is to actually use your colleagues as a learning tool, as a platform on which to learn. So hopefully they're good colleagues and they're more than willing to talk with you, maybe meet you on a Zoom, or depending on where you are, if you're in person, at lunch or something like that, depending on your situation, and have them talk with you as a colleague through some of these problems and through their thought process, through their educational experiences, the things they learned that have helped them, and use your colleagues as a resource and how you might want to feel, kind of closer to the point where you can take those things to the next level. And of course, deciding what the next level means. What does that actually mean to take something to the next level? Is defining that as well. So, as you can imagine, I have a very analytical mind, not in everything, but in most things, I have a very analytical mind. And picking apart statements and questions like this to really figuring out what they are, seeing all avenues to address those sorts of things, look at it from all angles, is the fastest way to effectively define and close that perceived gap. So that's what I would do. And I've done that in the past as well. So if I had colleagues or friends or whoever else that I felt like I needed to up my game or whatever else, they would be a great resource, to learn from. And actually, I'll tell you the truth, in my day job, it's most often the reverse. So I will have individuals at my company, because they know, our success that we have at Cengage, our product team success. They know that I do the YouTube and live stream stuff. So they will ping me on Slack and say, hey, do you have 30 minutes, to talk me through, I'm thinking about going into a business analytics career or a data science career or something like that. Can I pick your brain for 30 minutes? And then they'll send me an invite and I'll talk to them for 30 minutes about what I know. And then they can take that, in concert with the other information they have garnered, and that can inform their decisions. So I would say don't be afraid to use, the colleagues you have as the best resource, because that seems to be your target. Seems to be your target here. And then define what these things mean. What's the next level? What sort of problems are you looking to solve? And then start there. That also helps focus, because you're going to have limited, we all do, have limited resources and time and everything else. That will help focus you on what you want to actually hone in on to bridge that gap as you sort of perceive it. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think ones I can actually answer in the live stream. Okay. Thomas, thank you, Brandon. I find that I need to look back at foundational concepts a lot. I need to understand the questions I'm asking before I sift through the details of an analysis. I need to work through the basics of a new process before I use any tools. Everyone's different, but I agree with you. Absolutely. We tend to focus on tools more than fundamental ideas and concepts. And that's easy to do when there's such a proliferation of free tools. But yeah, looking back at foundational concepts in the context of whatever question or problem you're trying to solve is the most important thing. And I'll give you a quick example, just real quick. So as I'm putting together the new time series videos, it's really evident that you can probably divide it up further, but time series is really two buckets. There's time series modeling and there's predictions, time series forecasting, predictions. There's some overlap between the two, but they do two different things. So this is a little preview of a concept in the video that I've already done. If I'm building a time series model, I'm looking at a much broader set of things. So if I'm doing economic modeling or climate modeling or energy modeling or whatever else, a time series model is looking for causation. It's looking for how this influences that. It's looking for, obviously trends and seasonality and all that kind of stuff, but it's a different question. If I'm doing time series forecasting or predictions, the only thing that matters is how good my predictions are. Doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. So if I use, 3-day moving average or an exponential moving average or whatever sort of method I want to use in a time series, and I measure my forecast errors, that's no different, in my opinion, no different in time series forecasting and predictions than if I get my time series forecasts from a fortune cookie or a tarot card or dice. Doesn't matter. All that matters is how good the predictions are or the forecasts are. It's kind of the black box question, right? So it doesn't really matter what's going on inside the box so long as the forecast or output is accurate. Now, of course, that way of doing it has to be repeatable, has to be verifiable. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. But those are two different questions. The modeling forecast is different. The modeling time series is different than making predictions or forecasting. The only thing that matters in the prediction or forecast is how good the prediction or forecasts are, regardless of where they came from. So, two different things. All right. Let's see here. A few more minutes. Thank you all for hanging with me during a time I'm not feeling very well. I appreciate you sticking around. I know I'm not at my best right now, and I apologize for not being at my best right now. I'm sorry, but thank you for sticking around. All right, yeah. So there's a similar situation. Yeah, trying to like bridge that gap with where you think you need to be, which is the basis of all education, I guess. Several good comments coming up. Can you share your first interaction with statistics as a subject? and what motivates you to learn it further? Good question. I'll try to keep this short. All right. So funny thing about this question, I will keep it short, is that probably my first interaction with statistics is actually through science. And anyone who's listened to previous live streams, I talked about my love of science, and actually science is where it all started for me. It was actually in science. I grew up during the space shuttle era. I grew up during Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. I was always an outdoor kid, riding my bike everywhere, playing outside all the time, building tree houses everywhere. It's just, I was in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, doing all kinds of stuff. Science, and that's where my relationship to math really kind of got started, was through science. Statistics, my first stats course I ever took in college and university, I got like a big fat C in. Because 2 reasons. One, it was at like 7:30 in the morning. Not a good time to be taking that. Number 2, it was taught horrendously. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. The way it was taught. And basically I just lost interest because of those 2 things. So my first experience with statistics was not good in an educational sense. However, over time, as I got into these sorts of ideas deeper, my interest grew. And honestly, where it really came into the fore was when I was at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. So many students needed help in their stats class, in their finite math class, and some other types of classes. So many students needed help in those classes that I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to teach all these students how to do it. So I learned how to learn it. Does that make sense? So my learning comes first, the teaching comes second. So I learned how to relearn it. And then that relearning translated into the teaching that I was offering dozens and dozens and dozens of students at IU. So what motivates me to learn it now are both of those things. I find it intrinsically interesting, even though I think there are some definite downsides to this over quantification of everything, which I could maybe talk about later. I'm intrinsically interested, but I also need a lot of students out there that need help. So I learn things for the purpose of taking that knowledge and then helping people. So I combine my interest with what people need help with, and that's what I do. And that's like the fundamental driving force of my life, my career. So if people need help with something and I'm interested in that thing, that's where I go, because that's where I can do the most good. So, and hopefully I'll do as much good as I can before my time on this earth is up, and I'll be happy. So that's fine. Let's see. Trying to go back to the questions here. Some of these I can't answer in the chat, so I apologize. I can't answer in the live stream. I'm sorry. Find the inference versus prediction trade-off a little unsettling. There are trade-offs in all of these sorts of techniques. It's just admitting, understanding what the unsettling trade-offs are and what you give here to get here, and just being aware of them is the main thing. All right. So answering Kavya's question, Kavya, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I do apologize if I'm wrong. Do my best. I think the key business understanding is the main thing. Sometimes I feel the same, but only because I didn't know about the business domain. Absolutely. I completely 110 billion% agree with that. Just having a business understanding is so foundational, and a domain knowledge is so foundational to all of this stuff. As I've said before in this stream and elsewhere, if you're learning statistics or data science or machine learning or whatever else, unless you're learning that as the discipline itself, which people do, but if you're learning that in the context of a larger domain, so finance or healthcare or climate science or whatever it might be, knowing the domain, the business domain, and everything around it, the context is so important. So important. So I completely agree. So kind of give some tips to avoid losing interest in the topic. Someone is learning. You know what my advice in this is? Take a break. Take a break. If there's something that you are intrinsically interested in, but you find yourself losing interest in it, one of the best things you can do is take a break from it. And you'll be surprised what your brain will do and what your mind will want to do. If you take a little break from it, you will actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Your brain, it's like your dreams at night are consolidation. Your brain is consolidating your experiences. If you take a break, your brain will consolidate what you've sort of done up to that point. And then you'll be surprised, all of a sudden you'll get the interest back. And then you'll go on to the next thing. So there are other things you can do, but one of my biggest recommendations here is to take a break. Go learn something else for a little while and then come back to it. And then go to this, go to that. It's also the case that if you do that, let's say you learn something for a few months, you kind of lose interest in it. But you're interested in it, but you sort of lose that drive. Go study something else related. And then a couple of things can happen. One, you can begin to see connections between those two things, and or something in that new topic you're learning will bring you back to the other, and you want to go further. So my view on this is to sometimes just take a break, okay? And then let it naturally come back, unless you're under some sort of time crunch. But if you're learning a topic and you're losing interest, you could also stay within that topic, but maybe learn from a different source. So you can read a different book or do a different course from a different person and look for the connections and the synergies between those two things. So, all right. Ooh, this has gone by fast. Yeah, Piper Tripp says, I get it, but not being able to interpret seems a little sketch, a bit voodoo. Maybe, yeah, sometimes interpretation is necessary. Sometimes it's not. It's not. When I take a data set and run it through a complex machine learning algorithm or some other thing, I don't always understand how it all works. There are many, many things in my life I don't understand how they work internally. All that matters to me is that what they're supposed to do is what they end up doing. A lot of people who don't kind of understand how cars work kind of have this idea. It's like, they're like, I don't know how a car works. The parts and electrical, I don't know how it works. All I need to know is that it gets me from here to there safely. So I think you're probably referring to my point that when doing time series forecasts or predictions, it doesn't really matter where the prediction comes from, so long as it's accurate. That could be, moving averages. It could be rolling a die. As long as it's accurate, doesn't really matter. Okay. But time series modeling is a different animal. Okay, so Kavya says, my role has been more focused on the business side, so my perceived gap has not been a big issue at work. I'm envious of their creativity in seeing solutions where I see the end of the road. Now, see, that is a completely different question, a completely different avenue. So if I had known that before, you know, it seems to me, Kavya, that what you want to be able to do is to see a broader picture to understand the connections between things and to be creative in coming up, with those sort of solutions and seeing other possibilities. So that's a whole different way of working on your perception and your brain. So I've been known to come up with very odd solutions just in everyday life for things. Some of that's just trying out, so they don't all work, trying out new things, or, learning other stuff, or actually going out and actually trying to see how other people have solved problems. It's like, we all know, like, some of the great minds in math and science and other disciplines, yes, they were very intelligent, but what often made them most intelligent was their creativity and being able to see something that someone else couldn't see in their imagination. So yeah, that one's a little bit harder because, right, it's not like sitting down and doing working problems endlessly. It's working on a more creative way of thinking. And sometimes the best way to do that is just to experiment with different things and see what works, what doesn't work. And of course, you can learn from people who have tried different, unique, novel things. But it's just, some of this stuff is just experience and time, honestly. So, and I would say that, like, this, if you're trying to become a more creative thinker, I'm not saying you are, but don't limit yourself to just being within your discipline or domain. Really go out and study creative thinking and creative problem solving from all kinds of different angles, So in your domain, but also maybe, leaders and political leaders over time, or artists, or whatever. People in all disciplines and all areas of life come up with creative solutions to problems. So I'm not saying you are, but don't limit yourself to just that then. If you want to be a creative, a creative thinker overall, more creative thinker. Okay. So I had the same view for statistics in the beginning, but later I started to take interest in it. And sometimes interest in topics can just grow over time. In many things in our lives, sometimes fondness comes with time. So, okay, take time. Yeah. So Piper Tripp said, definitely talk to your colleagues and find out what skills they use in their solutions. That will help you identify where your gaps are. Absolutely. So that's one thing. Tried that, not been able to get actionable takeaways from them though. Gotten vague answers mostly. Continuous learning, reading, subscribe newsletters, etc. Those don't seem very vague. I think those seem pretty, What I would ask them, Kavya, is to, okay, well, what reading? What newsletters? What, can you be more specific within those domains? So I guess that's kind of it's slightly vague, right? Vague would be just, do more. Slightly vague is continuous learning, reading, subscribe newsletters. Specific would be what? Which ones? So, yeah. I lose interest when reading aimlessly or that a structured study plan. Yeah, if you're a person who likes structure, having a structured plan to tackle content can be a great help. It can make your time very efficient as well, and you can usually cover more. So, I'm an avid reader. I read a lot. I read a ton. And, I basically have given up television for the most part, but I read a lot. But what I'll do is I'll have like 3 books going at once and like 3 audio books going at once. Sometimes they're related, sometimes they're not. And I consume them around a semi-formal structure. So I tend to read a lot when I'm sitting outside on my deck. So what I've done is I've combined those 2 things that I enjoy. I like to sit outside on my deck when it's nice, take my iPad out there and read. Audiobooks I like to listen to when I'm exercising or hiking. So I've paired my exercise routine with my audiobook routine. Sometimes they'll overlap a bit, but I've tied the structure of how I consume and learn certain things with other things, and that helps me as well. So I'm not sure if I would structure my learning in and of itself, but if I pair it with something else, it might be. So, all right. Okay. Yeah, try to get myself to read research papers and scholarly articles. It's hard if I want to skip the math, get the gist, and apply it using a tool that will do the heavy lifting. Yeah, sometimes it can be hard, but there are layers of abstraction, without going too much into all the specifics and the math and stuff like that. There are definitely like secondary things that you can read or work on that will cite the research articles, but not go into some of the more detailed sort of stuff. But the learning the tools, of course, is important if it's related directly to what you're sort of wanting to do. Research papers, you can obviously, if you're not interested in all the methodology and stuff like that, you just want to get read the abstract, you can read the conclusion and kind of skip around. That's what I used to do a lot, is just sort of skip around the different parts of the research papers that I want to get the basic gist and the basic idea. I'm not a researcher trying to replicate that study, nor am I a research that's doing similar research in the canon of that research. So I just need the overview, and that's what I would focus on. Let's see here. Do you still revise topics when you get stuck at some point, or do you go back to the basics to do a quick revision? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Gaurav. If you're still around, could you give me an example or an idea? Like redo a video, I think you mean revise in the sense of study. I learned that on another live stream. So revise to me means do over, but I think revise in this sense means study. So I'll say, do I study topics when you get stuck at some point, or do you go back to the basics to do a quick revision? Yes and yes. Yes and yes. So it's completely within my process to step back and go back to something and then pick up there and go forward again, back. It's not like you never go backwards. It's like you take 5 steps forward, and it's a little bit further out than you're comfortable. So you take 2 back, and then you kind of learn and review there. And then you take 4 forward, and then maybe 1 back. The net movement is forward, but it's not only forward. So reviewing topics and reviewing things is intellectually, it can be an extremely rewarding process. Every time you go back and review something, you reinforce it, and you reduce the chance you'll have to come back there again. Right? So you're kind of spiraling back to something, but the overall path is forward. It's always forward, even if you have to take a step back now and then. Let's see here. So, Pooja asked, I want to learn applying statistics and assessing financial markets. Example, what all techniques can we apply at the time of market crisis to get an optimum solution? Well, that's a very complex question. Sorry. I want to learn applying statistics, assessing financial markets. What all techniques can we apply at the time of market crisis to get an optimum solution? There's a lot embedded in this question. I'll try to be quick. So a market crisis is by definition, supposedly, a rare event. So a crisis is by definition a rare event. So you got to keep that in mind. An optimum solution for what is the next sort of question. And, when it comes to statistics for assessing financial markets, the area of econometrics is the best place to start. So if you pick up an econometrics text or something like that would be a good start, because assessing financial markets to me means you're wanting to learn how to build financial models, which means you have to have a broad view of financial markets. You also have to have a broad view of current events, of history, of learning how moving this over here affected this over here and then affected this over here, understanding the causal patterns within markets. And then it's also understanding what you'll never know. So what affects markets that is really unknowable, right? Because when you're building a machine learning model or some crazy algorithm for financial markets, to give you an example, you can only put into those models what is known. If two people have a business lunch and share a tip or share an idea, well, technically, I guess that's insider trading or illegal potentially. That stuff goes on. There's no real way to probably stop that completely, but that's unknowable. So it's just understanding the limits of what you can and cannot know when building these sorts of financial market models. All right. We'll go a few more minutes because I am really starting to hurt in my throat. So my take is their creativity comes from their knowledge of possible statistical solutions to problems. Very good point. Come back to that. I'm good at connecting dots and translating the results in the business. All right. So the creativity of applying statistical solutions to problems is really, in a way, a historical study of how this sort of solution, how this technique was applied to this problem to come up with this solution, right? Of things that only happened in the past, the only way to go back and learn them is to study those cases. So there might be examples of different cases that you've come across. There might be cases of, certain things that is the case that you want to go back and look at how this person or this company used a technique to solve a problem. Good example. Good example is the Netflix problem, the famous Netflix problem, right? So when Netflix did their contest for their recommendation algorithm, they went out and actually what they were looking for is not really the solution necessarily. They were looking for the technique, right? So they were looking for the technique of how to solve the problem than maybe the solution itself, right? So that's the way to go back and look at certain ways that companies and businesses have solved their problems and the techniques they employed, right? So certain cases in history might be good places to start for looking for that creativity, or in modern, sort of a modern sort of sense, Kaggle does some of that stuff. So, it just depends on where you want to look. All right. All right. So how frequently do you do revisions in terms of review? I review things as necessary. So if I want to have a better understanding, better context, reinforce something, or whatever else, I just go in and do whatever review I need to do. All right. As long as the progress isn't like a random walk, you're probably doing okay. Yeah, I guess technically speaking, forward is not good enough. You want to have an upward trend. So, all right. But I want to learn the stats concepts because it's interesting and exciting. Yep, especially connect something that felt complex to the business. Yeah, you can probably find caveat. You can probably find examples of the Netflix examples when I used, where ostensibly they were looking, that would seem like they're looking for a solution, but they're really looking for a technique. And you can probably find other examples along those lines throughout business that you can research and look into on how these things were viewed and looked at when the problem was reviewed. All right. Just finished the Poisson distribution from your channel. It's helpful. Thanks a lot. Looking for joint distribution from your channel. I found the joint and marginal probabilities are the same. Depends on the context in which, but yes. Yes. So the joint distribution, I guess, can mean multiple things. So it might. Depends on exactly what you're looking for. So some of these terms can have multiple meanings across different disciplines. So, all right. Oh, I'm a fraud, apparently. Nice. Appreciate that. All right. Hey, Brandon. Thank you for so much for your videos. Helped me quite a bit. Sifo, I hope I'm saying that correctly. You are very welcome, my friend. I'm very, very glad that you found them helpful. So appreciate your very kind comments, and I wish you all the best. I hope to help you keep helping you out as long as I can. So keep up the hard work. You're doing great. Okay. Love the motivation quotes. Start their videos. Love and respect from India. You're very welcome. I don't do those as much anymore because one, it makes the videos longer, of course, and most people just want to get in and do the work. But I've also just come to the conclusion over many, 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 many years, of education work. If you don't come into a learning environment or learning situation in the right mindset, what you do after that point, a lot of it will be irrelevant. So if you don't come into a learning environment or learning situation or learning opportunity feeling good about it, feeling positive about it, having an open mind about that opportunity, what you're going to learn over the next whatever minutes or whatever weeks is largely not going to matter. Sorry. Isn't going to matter. So I put the quotes at the beginning, one, to get everyone to seeing the big picture, but also to get people to feel good and be ready to take a breath, calm down. A lot of students that come to my channel also are there because they need they really are desperate for help. So if I can help relax those students a bit, deep breath, a few seconds of calm, and then now we're ready. Then we go in and learn. So that's one of the reasons I used to do that. All right. So thanks for all you do and get better soon. I'm going to work on that over the weekend. Luckily, for those of you who just came into the stream, about 36 hours ago, I got hit by a COVID sledgehammer. I managed to go 2.5 years without catching it, and it finally got me, and it got me hard. It got me really, really, it hit me really hard, and I'm a lot better than I was even yesterday. Definitely about a day and a half ago. So I'm going to take the rest of the weekend and probably a day off work or two to try to get my strength back and get back to the way it was. So, all right. Learn a lot from your videos. Thanks a lot. You are very welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for the live chat. Always appreciate your efforts for new learners. Take care of your health in this pandemic. Thank you very much. That's my goal. Vikas, hello. Good to see you. Thank you. Kavya, thanks for all your comments and input on the stream today. I think having Kavya people like you in the stream really add to its value for the other viewers and people who come to the stream for advice and tips. So I appreciate your input into the stream, and I'm sure other people in the chat really appreciate your comments and you being open with some of the things that you are trying to improve upon and some of the areas of your career that you feel like you want to improve on, and being vulnerable and open to sharing those with everyone. So I appreciate your very kind input. So okay, get well soon. Thank you. I'm going to try. Can I play with some biostatistics? Probably not, just because of time. And there's a lot of biostats that can be learned in sort of gen stats. So get well soon. Thank you very much. All right. All right. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up because I have pushed my limits on what I should be doing probably. But yes, I want to thank you all for this excellent live stream today. So I'll be back, assuming I'm better, should be, in 2 weeks, which I think is what, the 23rd, approximately. And oh yeah, so Piper Trip, also want to thank you, my friend, for your participation in the chat as well, and being open to sharing sort of what you're going through as well. So I really, really appreciate that. So I'll be back in 2 weeks, assuming everything is, I'm relatively back to normal by then, which I should be. And more coming on the time series playlist that I announced. So if you are, if you didn't come in, I am starting a new series of playlists and videos on time series. They will look something like this. I might tweak this a little bit, but it's basically going to be this sort of design, so you'll know when they pop up. I already have 3 videos ready to record, and a 4th one already started. Probably next month at some point, I'll start releasing those in addition to any statistics videos I might do. So I'm hoping that on the next live stream we'll have a guest or two from Statisticscom, who's going to be the sponsor for a few videos and live streams. So I hope to have some of them on the live stream, so you can talk to them and ask questions about their specialties. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but thank you for putting up with my diminished state today. But I wish you all a happy and safe weekend wherever you are in the world, and I'm so glad to have you here on this channel, and I hope to see you again soon. So take care, my friends, and bye-bye.